What's up, everybody? You're watching the Model Aviator channel. I'm Adam, and this week we have a new release announcement and review of the latest from Horizon Hobby. This is the E-Flite Viper 64. This is a very feature-packed 64mm sport jet, and it has one feature that I've never seen before in anything. It's pretty cool. We'll get into all the details right after we show you how easy this thing is to get together. This particular Viper is an early production sample that Horizon had for testing before we got our hands on it, so it didn't come with a manual. That said, I had no trouble figuring out how to get it together, and since then they've sent us a digital copy of the manual. I checked that out, and as you might expect from E-Flite, it'll do a great job of taking you through what is a very quick assembly. The part count is very low, as you can see. We started with the horizontal. You slide that into place, and you'll tighten it down with 3 machine screws. Next is your main wing. You'll notice it has automatic plugs on the one-piece wing as well as plugs in the fuse. And with the wing off, you have access to your fan unit as well. You'll put the wing in place and tighten things down with 6 machine screws. The nose cone is magnetic and slides into place. Your main gear legs go into a hole on either side of the bottom of the wing and then swing around into place into 2 clips. You want to make sure that the springs on those struts are facing forward. Your front nose gear strut goes into a hole underneath the fuse, and inside the hatch you'll notice there's a tiller arm attached to a quick connect on the servo arm on the steering servo. You're going to want to put that tiller arm facing towards the nose of the jet on the hexagonal shape at the top of the nose gear strut. There's a thumb screw, and you just screw that right into place. The ventral fins are magnetic and just slide right into place. The push rods on your ailerons and flaps are pre-installed. The only thing left to do to complete the assembly is to pop the ball links onto the balls of the control horns of your 2 elevator halves. You're going to want to do this after you have the airplane bound and that elevator servo centered, so that you can make sure you center those surfaces and make sure that both elevator halves are going up and down at the same rate throughout full deflection. The Viper 64 has a 42.2-inch wingspan. It's 36.7 inches long. Our example weighs 2 pounds, 7.4 ounces, ready to fly with the gear on and a 2200 4S pack. It has an Avian 70 amp Smart Light ESC, a 2840 3150 kV motor, an 11-blade 64mm fan unit, 7 9-gram digital metal gear servos, and is intended for use with 4S 2200 to 3200 packs. The Viper 64 is a part flyer size model, but it does come in above the maximum suggested weight for a part flyer, and it comes in a lot above the maximum suggested speed. So a sanctioned flying area is always going to be the safest place to fly something like this. Now that said, if the parking lot or park that you're used to flying out of is a large enough area, you're following your local laws, and you take the steps to be as responsible as you can be, you could certainly safely fly this out of an area like that as well. It is sold as a plug-and-play and a bind-and-fly. With the plug-and-play, you choose your radio protocol and install your receiver of choice yourself. A full-range receiver is recommended for an EDF, and any protocol is fine. With the bind and fly, it comes with a Spectrum-compatible receiver pre-installed for you. It's a 5-channel jet out of the box. You have elevator, rudder with a steerable nose wheel, ailerons, flaps, and throttle. If you get the bind and fly and you're using a modern-day Spectrum transmitter, there are a couple of virtual channel functions that you can take advantage of if you choose to. The Viper 64 may be a rather small sport jet, but that doesn't mean it's not full-featured. It starts with plastic bits in strategic places to keep those areas looking fresh. Plastic nose cone, plastic-lined air intakes, plastic on the bottom of the ventral fins. The paint scheme itself is quintessential E-Flite Viper. There's a definitive difference and a lot of contrast in the top and bottom of the jet, so keeping up with it line of sight when it's hauling is much easier to do. It is a convenient top loader with plenty of room in the battery bay for even the largest of the packs recommended. The gear is very nice. You have oleo struts with trailing link suspension, and they're very easy to remove and replace. No tools required. It'll take you about 30 seconds to remove the gear and the magnetic ventral fins and have this thing ready to go as a hand launcher. When you are flying it as a hand launcher, all of the proper features are there. There are 3 grooves underneath the plane right on the CG for your index finger, middle finger, and thumb, which make up pretty much a perfect launch grip. There's plastic skid plates underneath, and the servo arms and push rods on your flaps and ailerons have protective covers. Like its bigger brother, the Viper 90, this one comes with a full set of day-bright LEDs, and being the bind and fly, it is equipped with a Spectrum AR631 Plus receiver, and that plus means what a lot of you think it means. This is the first bind and fly to be equipped with and tuned with the new AS3X Plus. Of course, you have optional safe select. If you choose to activate that, you'll have the automatic launch mode so that when you go to launch the airplane, it will recognize the lateral G and feed in some up elevator for you so that the airplane comes out of your hands nice and level. And of course, if you have the right Spectrum transmitter that is smart telemetry compatible, you'll have the full boat of smart telemetry at your fingertips as well. You'll get flight log information, minimum and maximum voltage, minimum and maximum ESC status, on the fly ESC status, smart battery information, a G meter, and of course AS3X and safe settings. Like any E-Flite bind and fly plane, the manual is a great place to start. It will get you through to a very good setup for your maiden flight, and you can adjust from there. But that said, the Viper 64 has a feature that we've never seen before. Not only is it the first airplane with the AS3X Plus, but because of the AS3X Plus technology, this receiver has a smart transmitter file built in that you can load directly from the receiver into your transmitter when you bind the airplane. So when you go to bind the airplane, you're going to see this menu, and it's going to ask you if you want to load the setup file or skip it. If you skip it, you can just set the airplane up the way you always do. If you hit load, it's going to ask you to confirm on this screen. When you confirm it, it downloads the entire manual setup into your transmitter, and everything is set up for you. All the switches are assigned, rates, flaps, everything, even all the audio prompts are taken care of, so when you flip the switches, she tells you what's going on. It's pretty trick. The only thing left for you to do is, if you decide that you want safe select, you will have to go into forward programming and turn that on and assign it to a switch. But other than that, everything else is done for you. Now, a couple of things you need to know about that. DX series transmitters and the IX12 are old enough technology that they don't have enough memory to support a feature like that, so you can't take advantage of the smart transmitter file with those transmitters. However, all of the other IX transmitters and all of the NX series transmitters that are updated to the latest firmware. At this point, we're making this video, I think it's 4.0. That's the update that turns this 8-channel NX8 into a 20-channel transmitter. It is well worth doing, and it enables you to take advantage of that smart transmitter file. And also worth noting, when it comes to programming AS3X Plus, we did a little research and come to find with the IX and the NX series transmitters, we know for sure that since they have forward programming capability, you can go into forward programming on an AS3X Plus receiver and make all of the AS3X Plus adjustments, even if you don't have that update 4.0 done. But it is still worth doing it. As far as can you do that with a few DX transmitters that are forward programming capable, I don't know. I haven't been able to find that out. If any of you have a DX transmitter that has forward programming capability and you program something with AS3X Plus, let us know in the comments. I'll pin it so that everybody knows. One quick thing to note when it comes to this particular smart transmitter file, they have the setup on the Viper 64 to where the flaps are on flight mode. So each flap position is its own flight mode. That way you can perfectly trim the airplane for each flap position. In the future, bind and fly airplanes are going to be AS3X Plus. They're going to have these smart transmitter files. I don't know if they're going to revert to the old school flap settings where you just have normal elevator compensation, or if they're going to do this flight mode thing on all of them, but this one has flight modes. So when it comes to setup, obviously you can deviate as little or as much from that as you want, and of course we did. We have our own setup on this Viper. Really love the way this thing flies with our setup. Our full setup info page is next, so you can take a look at all our settings, including our own personal AS3X Plus settings for the Viper 64. So if you want to pause that and set your plane up that way, you can. After the setup page is going to be the flying. The usual stuff. We did gear on and gear off demos. We landed it in the grass with both. So check the setup page up, check the flying out, and we'll see you back here. We'll give you our final thoughts. We wanted to show you how tight the turning radius was, and now we're going to give it the beans and let her rip. I was very impressed with the climb rate, especially right on takeoff with the gear on. From an aerobatic standpoint, I couldn't see where the gear hindered this jet much at all. If you've got the control throws set high enough, the Viper 64 tumbles really well, gear on or off. She slows right down when you put those flaps out. I don't know what it is about tumbling a sport jet, but it just never gets old to me. Given how fast this thing gets off the ground and utilizing thrust reverse, you could get this thing on and off a really short runway. Here's our first stall test. This is with full flaps deployed. Just a tiny dip of the left wing and easily recovers. We're going to do it again with no flaps, and it's going to do the same thing, and worth noting, with the gear off, the stall characteristics are exactly the same. And for the folks that fly off grass, here's a landing and a takeoff. We did all our hand launches in safe mode. The automatic launch mode works really well, and we just flipped it into AS3X Plus when we got our second hand back on the transmitter. Losing the weight and drag of the gear makes a difference on both ends of the speed spectrum. Here with full flaps deployed, it's actually slower now than it was with the gear on. Vipers are some of the best knife-edging sport jets out there, and the 64 does not disappoint. As you'd expect, it flies beautifully inverted and takes very little down elevator to hold it. We've got our timer set to 3.5 minutes, but I can easily get 4 with good throttle management. You know, it's a Viper. It flies exactly as you'd expect, really, really well, and with AS3X Plus, this one doesn't fly like a 64mm jet. It flies more like an 80 to me. Very impressed. We decided to include this flight because it really showed off the lights. The lighting and the clouds were just perfect. Enjoy this, and we'll see you back on the bench. So I have to say, I'm surprised at how good it did with the gear on. I'm not sure what I expected, but that was way more performance than I thought we'd get. I expected it to be really good with the gear off. It's even better than I thought. It meets all of the performance claims that they put on this jet, as simple as that. Now, one thing, when it comes to batteries, this is a hotter setup for 4-cell, a bit higher kV motor than you normally see in something like this. So you need to be mindful of the batteries that you use, particularly if you're using the smaller 2200 4-cells. You don't need to be using old, tired, small batteries or low C-rated batteries. A good premium, 50 and above C battery If you're using the 2200s, with the 3200s, the higher capacity will let you get away with less. These are 30Cs, and they worked fine. But just know that old tire batteries are not going to be what you want to use in this jet if you want the performance it has to offer. When it comes to skill level, Horizon says skill level 2, and we agree with that. You can certainly dial the control throws back for more of a novice EDF pilot and get it to where somebody that has got some confidence with a trainer can go directly from that to an EDF and have success with this. As you saw, it flies slow very well. You don't have to have the thing at full throttle the whole time. And of course, if you're a more experienced pilot, very capable, crank the throws up, let her rip, and you're going to have a blast. When it comes to the price point, that is a premium price point. $269.99 for an airplane in this class is a good bit of money. We have to understand, what is this class? We're talking single engine, 64mm sport or sport scale jets. The vast majority of those have removable gear like this does. I've seen a few that had really premium gear like this. It has trailer link suspension. I've seen maybe one or two that have flaps. A lot of them are still bank and yank. They don't all have a rudder, but many of them do. I've seen one that had lights. I've never seen anything that had all those in this class. And gear that is more easily removable, it's easier to prepare for hand launching and flying with the gear and go back and forth from that than anything else in the class. And then when you factor in AS3X Plus, which is significant, I can't stress enough if you've never used it, that is one of the most advanced, best gyro systems in the hobby, period. It is absolutely the most advanced and most capable you're going to find in a foam bind and fly airplane or plug and play airplane right out of the box. Very significant. The smart transmitter file makes setup a breeze, brilliant, just that fast, and the airplane is set up for you, and you can go from there. So when you take a look at everything you get for that price, and consider that the receiver itself is $85. I mean, just the receiver. When they say top of the class, which is their tagline for this airplane, I can't argue with that. I mean, it really is. So if you decide that you'd like to add a Viper 64 to your hangar, we'll put some links in the description where you can do just that. When you go through those links, it doesn't cost you more, and it helps support our channel. And when you do that, Heidi and I appreciate you. Thank you very much. That is it for us. Take care of yourselves. Happy flying. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings.